Welcome back to Crucible Mixtapes. I'm your host, Dev. Today I'll be showcasing another exotic armor build. Today we'll be focusing on the Wings of Sacred Dawn on Dawnblade Warlock, obviously. This is a pretty slept-on exotic, I think. A while back, Drewski did do a video about a chaperone build with it. And I'm just going to talk about the different combinations and ways that you can make this exotic effective. It's not how do I explain it? It's not so natural flowing. Like, it's not an easy to use exotic at first, because you may feel that the effect of holding you in the air from Wings of Sacred Dawn is actually detrimental. It stops all of your momentum when you're using it, so it's a different way of playing. You have to get used to kind of pausing in the air anytime you ADS. And this happens regardless of which Warlock class you pick, so it's really just up to what you're comfortable with. I think a lot of players will gravitate towards the top tree Dawnblade loadout just because of the in-air mobility, and I think that probably is the best call for it. However, I've been having a lot of success pairing it with bottom tree Dawnblade, which is actually kind of the worst subclass in a lot of people's eyes just because of the over nerf that it experienced a while back. I've been using it in combination with the Phoenix Dive perk, which lets you throw yourself down and heal a little bit, and in combination with the fact that Wings of Sacred Dawn gives you some damage resist, it's a pretty good mix-up. You know, you aim in the air, maybe you get a kill or put in some damage, and you drop straight down to heal up whatever it is that you took in return. That being said, if you're using the build wrong, you are a free sitting duck in the air for the enemy. It's a lot easier to kill someone using the Wings exotic perk as opposed to somebody using Heat Rises on the top tree. And I'll also say that I don't think it's really that worth it to use Heat Rises with this exotic. Like, yeah, you get the Strafe glide on your burst glide for consuming a grenade, but I think using this exotic kind of helps you replace that perk so you can use your grenade for combat. If you're playing mid-tree Warlock Dawnblade like I usually do, you'll also have the benefit of having a heal that you can use mid-air or on the ground. If you're floating near a wall, you can use the heal to keep yourself up longer. It's pretty good. So one thing that I did notice when testing this build out is the difference between the glides. Most of us use Burst Glide on the Warlock class just because of the speed, and generally the other jumps are somewhat clunky, or floofy, as we like to say, floof around as a Warlock. The problem with those floofs with Strafe Glide and Bounce Glide is that they're just a little bit slow compared to the other jump options in the game. It's easier to catch up to someone if they're not proficient in using it, and I even find sometimes with Burst Glide people catch up to me. If you're going to be using this exotic, though, I actually recommend learning and getting used to Strafe Glide. Yes, you won't be the fastest, but you'll have an in-air ability to change the trajectory of your floof. You'll, instead of floofing fast in one way, you can actually use it to go left, right, back, and forward in the air. Now again, this isn't that significant on a normal Warlock build, but when you're using Wings of Sacred Dawn, remember, it pauses you in the air. What you want to do to get out of that mode is press Glide. If you press Glide after ADS in the air with Burst Glide, what usually happens is your character kind of just sits there. He does a really awkward, just like floof, where he doesn't go left or right, he just kind of stays and goes down slowly, like a hover descending movement. When you're using Strafe Glide and Balance Glide, though, you're able to actually strafe left and right while you floof mid-air after aiming with Wings. This winded up being the biggest benefit out of all the jumps. You can use whichever jump you're more comfortable with. I think Strafe Glide is the way to go, also because Strafe Glide buffs the Dawnblade Super to have Burst Glide. I don't know what's up with Bungie's coding, but basically if you use Strafe Glide and then turn into your Dawnblade Super, your Strafe Glide will transform into Burst Glide, so you'll be really hard to catch because you'll be faster. So there is that added benefit. A lot of people used to switch to Strafe Glide before activating Dawnblade Super just to get that benefit, but here with Wings of Sacred Dawn, you can actually just main that jump. You can main the playstyle, get used to how the exotic pauses you in the air, and then get used to how Strafe Glide can take you out of that area. It's a great combination. It catches people off guard in a similar way that the popular attack helicopter Heat Rises build does on maps like Widow's Court or Distant Shore. For the most part, a lot of people are not trained to look as high as you can hang with these builds because Bungie just has this way of putting a ton of invisible walls on the upper areas of the map, and it kind of gets people into a habit to not look up because we just know the invisible walls are there. People can only go so high, and if they do go high, they're going to fall down in a predictable trajectory arc. This and Top Tree Warlock in general just helps you take advantage of the upwards parts of the maps and find some different parts of cover that you normally would not be able to think about or use thanks to the hovering and pausing in air mechanic. This is really cool, and is, you know, after you put in 100 hours on Warlock and you're getting bored of floofing around, this is almost like the next level. It's like you're just taking an entirely new level of combat, a new way of fighting. You're able to get first shot advantage more often because people are not trained to look up. Now, in the middle of a long comp match, competitive, people will get used to it. They will start to maybe even mirror you. They may challenge you in the air. They may start to look up during that first sniper rifle fight. So it's important to not get too baited by the exotic to play in such a predictable playstyle. It's really tempting to want to just jump all the time and go super high with your Revoker and snipe from angles that people don't expect. It's so fun, and I really recommend doing that, but when it comes to comp, you want to pause in mid-air as much as possible during while you're next to cover. When you're by cover, you're able to use the Strafe Glide to get out of there. Like I said, you're pretty much a sitting duck in the air when using this, especially if you're playing with Burst Glide. So it's important to just really account for that. Like, you're going to be a sitting duck. It's got to be safe when you're doing this, when you're aiming. I think Revoker is the best sniper to pair with this. I mean, it's pretty much the best sniper in the game, but as you're learning these in-air shots, Revoker is just extremely forgiving. You're able to take shots that you normally wouldn't, and with Icarus, you'll be able to kill people from angles they don't expect. I highly recommend running dual Icarus mods on your primary and secondary just so you can take advantage of the Heat Rises as much as possible. Also, if you did tune into my last video where I talked about the last word, I don't recommend using the last word with Wings of Sacred Dawn at all, because one, it's an exotic, you're not going to have Icarus on it, and two, the last word is a hip-fire gun, and Wings of Sacred Dawn only works when you aim down sights, which is what you kind of don't want to do with the last word. Thorn, Ace of Spades, Lumina, those are better exotic hand cannon options to pair with this. I mostly just stuck with Revoker and Waking Vigil. It just seemed like the most competitive, viable loadout for what this is offering. So I think it's a really fun build. If you like the idea of the attack helicopter build, but you don't like the mechanic of consuming your grenade, Wings of Sacred Dawn lets you play with that without consuming your grenade, and I think that's extremely valuable. You also get reduced damage, like a damage resistance buff while you're aiming down sights, while the Tome of Dawn perk is active. That doesn't mean you're invincible, it just really makes it more forgiving to do these momentary pauses in the air. It's really easy to punish once the enemies know what to look for, but you've got to stay unpredictable. Understand when to take ground fights and understand when to take in-air fights. This is going to be key in regards to the build. You'll always keep your enemy guessing. They'll never know where to look. They'll either be looking high, you'll be low, or you'll train them to look high and then stay low for the rest of the match, and then pull out the high option when they're not expecting it. Or you can just be really proficient at the high angles and have enemies constantly looking up, which allows your two allies in a comp game to dominate the ground game. So you're from the air, and then your allies come in from the ground. It just makes it so hard for the enemy to pick a target. Like, you just create the situation for them that they're not accustomed to, because no other character class hovers the way that you can with Heat Rises or Wings of Sacred Dawn. So it's really just an additional thing for people to think about. If you're into Trials of Osiris, you'll hear a lot of the popular streamers talk about how Top Tree Dawnblade is not to be slept on, and that the best teams always have one, especially on a big map like Widow's Court. because again, you're getting people to split their focus. They'll have to look up for you and down for the other two allies. So that is crucial. Just having that pressure, making them react to that, and being good with it is an entirely new mechanic set that, again, people don't do that much. So if you're having trouble doing attack helicopter with Top Tree Dawnblade because you don't like to consume the grenade, stick with Top Tree Dawnblade, but just play with this exotic and save yourself with the Icarus Dash. That is the most reliable way to get out of danger. And then I also recommend just using Strafe Glide, so you have two ways to get out of the air. Yes, you'll be a little slower, but this build is more about control. It's more about picking certain angles and areas of the map that you want to lock down and not let the enemy come. See, a lot of us, when we think of laning in Destiny, we just think of finding a safe spot and looking with your sniper rifle or long-range weapon, but this gives you aerial laning. And aerial laning is usually punished by other classes. They're always falling. They can't stay in the air, so this is really just a whole other infinity, like a whole other way of thinking about the game that you can hold over people. You can make them react to this and make them feel like they're inadequate, like they have no escape, like you're just not playing like the other guys in the game are. It's awesome. So that's kind of my take on it. I mean, I think hand cannon and sniper is the best combination for this. I mean, that's kind of the best combo in the game. You can definitely pull out other weapon archetypes. I just wanted to talk about this combo in my episode because I don't think the shotgun uses it quite as well. You really don't want to be holding down the far aerial lanes with this, because at the end of the day, the sniper is the best shotgun in a way. You can kill people from up close, you can kill them from far away, so if you can kill them from the air, it's just like ridiculous. It's so dumb. And, you know, I bet my enemies fucking hate me for using this. I bet they look at me and they're like, look at this guy just like floating around. He should be so easy to kill. But they're having trouble killing me because I know how to play around it. And it just takes a lot of trial and error. It's easy to kill yourself for free with this build. Another thing, if you're used to aiming down sights in the air with Top Tree Dawnblade, you'll be familiar with the fact that, what's it called? It's like Winged Assault or something. There's a perk on the Top Tree Dawnblade that allows you to stay aiming down sights in the air while keeping your glide momentum. Wings of Sacred Dawn just stops it. Wings will give you that pause when you're aiming down sights, so you're kind of losing that advantage of being able to ADS and continuously rise. But I think it's worth it. I think for the playstyle it's worth it. And you know, if you do get sick of wings, you can always take it off, put on your transverse steps or Ophidian aspects, and then just use the Heat Rises perk on the Top Tree Dawnblade, and chances are you'll be way better at it just for practicing with wings. So if you're really trying to get good at the attack helicopter build, wings lets you do the attack helicopter every life, grenade or not, and that is invaluable for gaining the time and muscle memory for these aerial snipes. So I hope this has been a compelling build for you. Maybe you'll try it out. I don't know if it's the most competitive build, but I'll definitely say that I've beaten some people in the 4,000 range of comp with this when they don't expect it. But if the match drags on too long, I become a little bit predictable to them. I have to think because they get used to seeing how they're dying. They get used to the fights that I take. So it really keeps you and your enemies on their toes. You gotta be on your toes, they gotta be on their toes. And I think that's great. Anything that gets you thinking in a new way about versus mode, about how you're fighting, I'm all about that. And this really promotes that. So I'm your host, Dev. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.